Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Angie Zimmern. I'm the Pro Bono Director at McGuire Woods. I also wear the hat of the Charlotte Triage Task Force Co-Chair alongside Todd Stillerman from Wells Fargo. Thank you all so much for taking the time to join us this afternoon and learn a little bit more about Charlotte Triage. Todd and I have been involved in Charlotte Triage since its inception in 2018. And I know that some of you are longtime volunteers, but for a lot of you, this is a new program. And today we want to help answer the questions, what is Charlotte Triage? How can I get involved? And why should I get involved? Well, the Triage partnership was formed in 2018 between law firm and in-house legal departments as a way to bring awareness and focus to the handful of legal needs that most affect our low-income neighbors in Charlotte. Through working with Legal Aid and Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy and now Safe Alliance and Council for Children's Rights, the task force has identified areas where they need us the most, frankly. We then created an easy way to help match matters with trained volunteers, which we do annually at our Charlotte Triage event this year to take place on September 20th. We also recruit champions to help manage and monitor volunteers and also provide staffing support when necessary. We form collaborations and partnerships across in-house legal departments and law firms, which helps remove a lot of barriers to pro bono participation. By tapping into these groups, we've essentially created a pro bono law firm for the city of Charlotte. The primary goal of this session is to lay a path for you for getting involved. Today we have speakers from the 7 service areas, which will comprise the Charlotte Triage partnership for this year. They're all going to give a short talk about why their area of need is so important and what a volunteer experience will look like in those areas. Today is not a CLE training or a deep dive. It's meant to be a high-level overview. We really hope you'll feel free to ask questions. That's what this informational session is for. Please type them in the chat, or we'll have time at the end after all the speakers have gone for questions. So I'm going to now turn it over to my Charlotte Triage co-chair, Todd Stillerman from Wells Fargo. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. Again, I'm Todd Stillerman with the Wells Fargo Legal Department. In addition to working with Triage, I've been very pleased to get to be the chair for the steering team for all of our Wells Fargo pro bono activities around our footprint, and happy to be here with you today. I wanted to hit on 3 quick things before we turn it over to the individual presenters. One, the Triage name sort of implies this, but what we've tried to do as we focus on Triage is to find those areas where the greatest legal needs exist in our community. And we've been lucky to get to do that with our legal services and nonprofit partners who are there on the ground helping the most vulnerable members of our population every day. And so we're confident that these are 7 areas where there is a tremendous need and that we are helping the community and forming a second level of support, again, behind those professionals at our legal services and nonprofit partners who are there on the ground helping clients. And so we're excited to get to do that with you. We're going to talk about pro bono activities, and one of the things that makes this type of work so special is it also allows us to do some things that meet our professional obligations as legal professionals. And I, would refer you to Rule 6.1 of the Rules of Professional Responsibility, which say that we should endeavor as legal professionals to try to provide legal services to people that can't afford them, and that we should support the organizations in our community that are providing that support. And, as an aside, it also says that we ought to try to give them money. And so I would point out that the Advocacy Center and Legal Aid will launch their annual Access to Justice campaign this fall. Safe Alliance already has a Breakfast of Hope on the schedule for October, and I feel pretty confident that Susie can get you a seat at one of those tables if you reach out to her and ask her. And I was just on the council's website this morning, and I know that they have opportunities for you to donate as well. And so, again, we're going to work with our legal services and nonprofit partners, and I hope you'll also reach out and support them in that way. The last thing I'm going to tell you is that this particular event is focused on getting you involved in one of our 7 service areas. And so you are going to have to make a choice next month as to which session you attend, and that'll get you in the volunteer chain for the section you select. But these are not exclusive areas, and there are lots of people that volunteer in multiple silos of our program. And so all of these opportunities regular training and onboarding opportunities are available. And so if more than one area looks interesting to you, please don't let that stop you from being involved in any of these areas or with any of our partners. So again, excited to tell you a little more about what's going to happen. And I'm going to turn it over to Isaac Sturgill from Legal Aid to tell you a little bit about the housing opportunity. Well, while he's figuring out how to connect, I can tell you, because I get to work with Isaac often, that Isaac's recently taken over the leadership of the triage portion of the housing practice at Legal Aid in North Carolina. But Isaac is really one of the foremost experts in the state of North Carolina on representing tenants. He handles multiple high-level appeals and does a lot of really exciting things. Angie, I'm wondering if we should skip Isaac and go to the next.
I'm back. I'm sorry about that, guys. My mic said it was working, but I was having some tech issues, so I stole Larissa's computer. Sorry about that.
Okay, well, take it over, Isaac. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate everybody's patience on that. I did want to say, Todd's not only one of the chairs, he's also one of our most zealous housing volunteers. So he's been in small claims court with us, slugging it out with landlords pretty frequently, and we appreciate that too. So a little background about myself. So I've been a tenants advocate and an attorney representing tenants in eviction court for the past decade. So I started in 2012, and I've done pretty much exclusively landlord-tenant law since then. So I kind of live and breathe this stuff. I'm very passionate about it. But I wanted to start by giving you some statistics to kind of outline the need for this type of representation in Mecklenburg County. There's about 30,000 eviction cases that go through this county each year, which is an enormous number. It's about twice the national average. Y'all probably have seen the rents rising. Our clients are struggling to keep up with that with their wages. And so we do have an eviction problem in Mecklenburg County. And in addition to it being worse here than a lot of places around the country, it also has a really disproportionate impact on certain communities. And so you'll see, and this bears out in Mecklenburg County too, the vast majority of tenants who are being evicted are Black women with children. And so that's really the population that gets hit the hardest in these eviction proceedings. So what our goal is to try to give some advocacy and give some help to tenants that are going through evictions to try to help them keep their homes and get into better circumstances. If you have an attorney as a tenant, your chances of success and of avoiding an eviction judgment go up exponentially. So it's less than half. Less than half the cases do not end up with an eviction judgment for unrepresented tenants. We pulled our numbers last fiscal year, and for the tenants that we represented, 88% of them were able to avoid an eviction judgment. So you can see how much difference having an attorney has for these tenants and how much it means to them. So we have a few different, and Todd and I have been working on this, and Larissa and everybody, but we have a few different ways that people can get involved with eviction defense in Mecklenburg County. And I'm going to just briefly describe each of those really, really quickly. And I think they're all great, and I've done all of them myself, and I think they're all fun, and they kind of hit different preferences and things like that. So one of my favorite ones is the eviction clinic. So we do a clinic at the actual Mecklenburg County Courthouse up in Small Claims Court. And what that looks like is we'll show up, we'll have legal aid attorneys who are subject matter experts there. Our volunteers will show up at the courthouse, and we set up shop outside of the eviction courtrooms. Eviction court happens in Mecklenburg County 5 days a week and in at least 3 different courtrooms, usually 4 courtrooms every day. So again, it's a huge volume of cases. But we'll wait there, and the magistrates who act as the judges in those proceedings, they'll make an announcement that anybody that wants to talk to a legal aid attorney or a pro bono attorney can do that. And then we will go out in the hallway and speak with the tenants that are there, give them advice, try to get information. Sometimes it results in us actually stepping in and representing them that day. Sometimes we just give them advice, and that's the extent of it. But it's really helpful. They have tons of questions. They don't know anything about the process, and it's just really a very useful service for those tenants. And again, sometimes we're able to actually jump in and get involved in the case and win it. Todd picked up a client from one of those clinics and ended up representing her at the actual trial and filed counterclaims for her and was successful at that small claims trial. And that made a huge difference for this woman who was showing up thinking she had no help at all. And that, the day of court, she shows up nervous and she ends up getting an attorney and like full on representation at that point. So that's one of the kind of the three that we're looking at. I will say with the clinic, it is something, the expectation for the volunteers is they just show up for the day. It's like a lawyer for the day kind of thing. It's about at least like maybe like a 2 to 3 hour commitment on the day that we do the clinic. We don't require that the volunteers keep cases after that. So if you meet a tenant and give them advice and the tenant ends up getting a continuance, you don't have to come back on the next date with that tenant. Although some of our volunteers like Todd, volunteer to do that. And if you want to do that, that's fine, but that's not the expectation. So that is something, if you think of it that way, it's like a 3 hour commitment for a 1 day kind of deal. And you can do it as many times as you want, of course. The second, we have a kind of a lawyer on the line model, and a lot of Larissa's been working on that really hard and has expanded that to a few different places. That's where we have volunteers show up, not at court, but in their own office usually, and we'll sit there with them. We'll have a subject matter expert on site from legal aid to answer any questions. And then that person, the attorneys, the pro bono attorneys that show up will be given contact information for clients that we have pre-screened, that we already know are eligible, a brief description of the legal issue they're facing. They'll have an opportunity to speak with legal aid if they have any questions, but the idea is to actually call that person and to give them legal advice on their situation within that session. And after we give them legal advice on the phone, the volunteer will draft a short letter, just kind of summarizing the advice, and we'll send that to the client so they can hold on to it if they need to reference it later. And so that, again, that's not something where you're having to go to court. It's something where you're there with a subject matter expert. You're calling people, you're talking to them, and giving them really helpful advice that can help them out with their situation. And then the third is kind of does involve litigation again, but it's got a longer fuse. So it's not meeting people on the spot and then jumping in and giving advice or representation. It's people that have a court date coming up, but you still have time to prepare. It could be an appeal to district court, which could be a few months out, for example. So those are cases with much longer fuses where you'd really have an opportunity to meet with the client, to interview them, look at the documentation, and kind of develop a strategy ahead of time before the court date comes around. And so that's something where we would basically, hook you up with the client. You would work with them on your own time, but our legal aid attorneys would always be available for phone calls or Zoom meetings or whatever you need, sample pleadings, any of that kind of stuff, if you need us as a resource. So those are the kind of three that we're looking at. It is really important. Our office did about 1,400 cases the last fiscal year. And with that being said, that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. We're working hard to do that. But still, that's 1,400 out of 30,000 that go through the court. So again, the vast majority of tenants are unrepresented. This is a way you can make a really big impact, a really big difference. And we're really excited for anyone who wants to join in and excited to work with you. And Todd, I don't know if you had anything Todd is like kind of like our poster child for housing volunteers right now. So I don't know if he wants to add anything or not. So.
No, I think you did great, Isaac, and we'll look forward to telling people more about what the experience is like at the Housing CLE in September.
Okay, thank you all.
Right.
Thank you, Isaac. We will now hear from the expunctions team, Courtney and Casey.
Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney V. Brock. I'm sitting here with Casey. I also had technical difficulties. I am an attorney here at Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy. I've been with CCLA since March, but I practiced in the criminal law world for about 5 or 6 years before coming over here. So have a background in that and have been able to use it towards a lot of the work that we do. I'm in the Community Empowerment Project. Most of what we do is expunctions, which is what we are asking for volunteers for through triage. We also do some driver's license restoration and property tax relief. But our expunctions are an area that are really, I think, prime for pro bono attorney volunteers to participate in. I think just for background, criminal records are just a really significant hurdle for people who are trying to reenter society from a housing and employment standpoint. It's, landlords and potential employers running criminal background checks. In North Carolina, you can actually pull someone's dismissals as well. And most people who aren't familiar with the criminal justice system will see any kind of criminal charge associated with the name of the person they're looking to maybe hire or lease an apartment to, and just opt to go with the person who doesn't have anything on their criminal record. Under North Carolina law, a lot of people are entitled to expunctions that don't even know it. Dismissals, for example, are automatically expungible under North Carolina law, which was expanded. Expunction relief was expanded a couple of years ago. It was a pretty significant bipartisan bill. And so the whole goal here is to try to remove those hurdles for people who are now entitled under these laws to have their criminal records expunged. When someone has a criminal record expunged, they can honestly answer in a job interview, on the stand in a trial, in any setting, basically, that they have never been charged with or convicted of the charge that, you know, they're being asked about. It is huge, I think. You know, I think we've learned from employment attorneys that a lot of places will only pull records back 7 years, but they still have that question on the application. Have you ever been convicted of a crime? So for someone to be able to honestly say no is huge, really opens up a lot of doors for them. So that's why we do what we do. As far as the extent of what we're asking pro bono attorneys to do for these cases, we will have the training in September through Triage. We'll basically go over expunction law, what's expungible, what isn't, how to read a criminal record. Criminal records, you know, look kind of funky. It's a bit of a learning curve to get in there and understand what they mean and understand what can be expunged, and then how to actually get things expunged, which is to draft and file petitions, potentially in just Mecklenburg, potentially in other counties that are neighboring, and to the extent that it's possible in counties across the state, where filing by mail is permitted and we don't need to travel to those counties. So that is to say, we are not generally expecting or asking pro bono attorneys to, for example, attend a hearing in Wilmington in order to expunge a record. We handle those records a little differently, but the ones that we're going to be sending out will hopefully involve a commitment. I would say it really depends on the record, but between 5 and 10 hours is kind of the average of what we expect once someone has gone through training. What the attorney would basically be doing is looking at the criminal record, determining what's eligible, which is basically like a logic game. You know, you learn the rules of expunction and then you apply them to the criminal record. If you like that portion of the LSAT, this might be for you. And then to the extent that there are hearings on these petitions, which some of them do require hearings depending on the county, we wouldn't be asking any attorneys to go any further than a county that's maybe an hour or less away. One part of this for sure is going to be keeping in touch with clients, keeping them updated. What I can say is that clients are generally super grateful for the help in this context, to help them get their criminal record expunged, to inform them about how to get, for example, you know, private companies that keep these records to remove the information from their websites or databases. All of those things people are so grateful for, and it really, at the end of the day, opens a lot of doors for them. So yeah, I think that's about it. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. We look forward to working with any or all of you.
Thank you so much, Courtney. We'll definitely handle questions at the end, so please feel free to type any questions you have in the chat. Now going to turn over to Natalie and Casey from Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy to talk about healthcare.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Natalie Marles. As Angie said, I'm the Health Insurance Navigator Project Manager at Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy. I've been at the center for 7 years, and I've been doing navigator work since I started, and then I moved a little bit for expansions and then came back to navigator to lead the team. So as Angie mentioned it early, we are having a CLE on September 20th about healthcare in North Carolina, and we are looking for volunteers to help us during the open enrollment season, but also now with all the changes that we have this year, we are welcoming attorneys, paralegals, administrators, support staff. We basically accept everyone that is eager and have a passion to help with health justice in North Carolina. So during that CLE, we'll be discussing like the difference between a Medicaid, what is Marketplace. Some of you guys have heard Marketplace as Obamacare, and any other resources or any other programs that are eligible for North Carolinians. What is the expansion? So this year, the expansion is kind of like the Medicaid expansion is being in the talk for everyone. We had a huge change in the law for North Carolinians, which will be allowing more North Carolinians to get access to healthcare in the coming years. So what that means and how it's going to impact our communities. Also, we will be discussing like the different programs that we can help consumers to get access to healthcare. And in a way that we do it in the past is in a 3 ways. So now you can volunteer as helping the Navigator project with callbacks. It's very important to us to be in contact with our past consumers, but also for the consumers that we've been reaching out through events and tabling and presentations during the year on the community. And we have a whole list with numbers and names that we can call them and schedule an appointment with a navigator to help them through the process. So that's at your own accord. So you are more than welcome to help us just with callbacks from your home on weekends, evenings. So it's basically very flexible. Then the second option that you have is to be certified as a navigator. It's a federal program, so you will go under a certification process that it can be at your own pace. You will do it online. It's completely virtual. It's 8 modules that will take you approximately 12 hours to be finalized and get certified. And then after that, we will give you a little bit of training on how we handle appointments and how to report on those appointments. And then you are more than welcome to participate on all our open enrollment events or taking appointments directly, virtually or in person. And then this year, since we are making a huge change on Medicaid, we are accepting volunteers to help us with Medicaid applications. That is a little bit different than we used to do it. So we will be offering a second training after the CLE, which will be on September 26th at noon. It will be virtual and it will be recorded to explain kind of like the Medicaid world. As I mentioned it, I've been doing this for almost 7 years, and it's still every day is something new on Medicaid. So we will be trying to help you understand like what the Medicaid means, how the process of application goes, and kind of like explain it easier to your clients as well, the ones that you will be assisting to get Medicaid. So that will go for an hour and a half. And the Medicaid application is different than the Marketplace application. So we also are going to explain a little bit how that process goes. Why is so important? So this year we need volunteers because actually NC Health Works, which is the fancy name for Medicaid expansion in North Carolina, will go in effect on October 1st. That date may change, but for now, that's kind of like the date that is being set. And it's only 10 days after triage. So you know why we need your help. Also because adults now that are between 19 and 64 that were not eligible for Medicaid or get access to healthcare in North Carolina through Medicaid programs, with an income of 138% of the federal poverty line, which means like less than $20,000, will now be eligible for Medicaid. So that means that almost 600,000 North Carolinians will be eligible for Medicaid this year, which is huge. And we need to help all those families to get access to healthcare. And then also, as May of 2023, we have almost 3 million of North Carolinians enrolled in any of the Medicaid programs. So we need to help the families to understand why it's so important to get access to healthcare, to get access to preventive care. So we actually need you to help us because unfortunately we are only a group of 10, and we need all of you to get North Carolinians healthy and be able to get access to health programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. That was fantastic. I'm really excited about the expansion this year. I'll now turn it over to Casey Burke from Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy to talk about the SIJS status for immigrant children.
Thank you so much, Angie. Hi, everyone. And let me just start by saying thank you. Thank you for showing up today. I hope to see all of you on September 20th as well. I run the pro bono department here at Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy, and we literally could not do what we do without volunteers. So I'm here basically standing in for Sharon Dove. She's the director of our Immigrant Justice Project. She is stuck in another obligation. So I'm going to tell you a bit about SIJS and how you can get involved and volunteer. SIJS stands for Special Immigrant Juvenile Status. It's essentially a pathway to permanent residency that is available for unaccompanied children who have suffered abuse, neglect, or abandonment in their home countries. Last year, almost 129,000 children actually came through the Charlotte Immigration Court, unaccompanied children arriving here primarily from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. The majority of these, well, all of these children were apprehended by Border Patrol when they arrived at the border, and they have now been resettled with a caregiver here in Mecklenburg County. And they need our assistance because they have traveled hundreds or thousands of miles, fleeing poverty, forced labor, gang recruitment, political instability, or natural disasters, and are looking to find a permanent way to stay here in the United States. So essentially, if you accept an SIJS case, we here at CCLA, our immigration attorneys, will be representing the child through immigration court, while you, the pro bono attorney, simultaneously represent the caregiver who's caring for that child in a family court proceeding seeking custody. That custody order is necessary. It's a predicate order that is a necessary step in the immigration court process for the child. It takes anywhere from really 9 to 18 months to get one of these orders in family court. The amount of time really varies, usually depending on how long it takes to actually get service. You'll meet with your client, draft a complaint, get service, often in the country where the child has come from, on the child's parents. And then you will have a hearing, which is generally virtual and totally uncontested. So I say that to say these cases are really great for anyone who is interested in doing a little bit of litigation, but in an uncontested way, so not full-blown contested hearings. Once you complete that hearing, you will get a judicial order placing the child into the physical and legal custody of the caregiver, which is your client, and setting them hopefully on a path for success, lifelong success here in the United States. If you're interested in immigration, in working with children, in maybe trying your hand at a courtroom hearing, I would say this is the case for you. And I can tell you from personal experience, it is a heartwarming area of the law. It is truly a wonderful experience to make a difference in a child's life in this way. So I would definitely encourage anyone with those interests to sign up for SIJS. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Casey. I would echo that. And, we don't want to scare everyone away by talking about a court hearing, but As for this subject area and a lot of others, we can partner you up with other volunteers. So it's a lot less intimidating. And if you're not an attorney, if you're a legal professional that wants to get involved, there's definitely room for you as well. Really, in all of these areas, we should have emphasized that at the beginning. Thank you, Casey. I'm going to now turn it over to Sarah Byrne from Moore & Van Allen, who leads the Moore & Van Allen Human Traffic Representation Project, to talk about the opportunities in that area this year.
Thank you so much, Angie. Greetings, everyone, all the existing and prospective Charlotte Triage volunteers. As mentioned, I'm Sarah Byrne. I'm with Moore & Van Allen, where I lead the firm's Human Trafficking Pro Bono project and co-champion Triage's Human Trafficking Area of Service, along with Alex Kopek from Haynes Boone. So unfortunately, human trafficking persists in our community, but the good news is that there is much more awareness about the crime and the victim experience. And there's also more supportive services for survivors of trafficking, including the legal representation and the other support that Triage volunteers provide to survivors both in Charlotte and across the country now. Our primary areas of support include expunction and vacatur of criminal records, victim witness advocacy and human trafficking prosecutions, family law needs, and immigration relief. And in exciting news, a few years ago, we expanded our services to financial inclusion for survivors. This includes assisting them with repairing delinquent credit status that often results from trafficking, access to safe banking services and products, and financial literacy training for survivors. We expanded into this area a couple of years ago because of our connection to the financial services sector, and really because our survivor clients alerted us to the fact that many human trafficking victims experience identity theft and forced or coerced debts at the hands of traffickers. This financial exploitation leaves survivors facing collector action and really just bad credit status. So as we often say, although a survivor may become free of the physical exploitation, the financial impact, like the psychological harm, can continue for many, many years. So we decided that Triage should get involved and help address this need. So thanks to the extraordinary collaboration among stakeholders, in 2022, the Federal Debt Bondage Repair Act was signed into law, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau promulgated the implementing regulation, which is titled Prohibition on Inclusion of Adverse Information in Consumer Reporting in Cases of Human Trafficking. So now, for the first time, trafficking survivors have a navigable path to repairing credit damage caused by trafficking, which is why this year's annual Triage event on September 20th, we're going to offer a CLE to train pro bono lawyers and other volunteers on how to assist human trafficking survivors in filing for relief under this new law and regulation. During that CLE, we're going to train attendees on how to file for this form of relief, which enables them to better access financial services and housing and employment. But the course is also going to address other legal remedies to remove barriers such as expunction of criminal records. And we will go over techniques for trauma-informed legal representation so as to ensure effective pro bono services for our survivor clients. If you're new to understanding human trafficking, please join us because we will educate about the realities of human trafficking. So it's both going to be foundational, but also highly technical. So we hope you'll join us on September 20th at 3:30 in person at Moore & Van Allen or virtually for the CLE titled Human Trafficking and Financial Exploitation, Credit Repair Needs of Survivors and the Debt Bondage Repair Act. And I'll just end by saying this year marks the 10 years of Moore & Van Allen's pro bono support of human trafficking survivors. So we really want to thank all who have volunteered to date, and we encourage others to get involved in the fight against trafficking. And I'll see you on the 20th.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'd now like to turn it over to Susie Canali, who's going to talk about a new area for service in Charlotte Triage this year, which is representing survivors of domestic violence.
Thank you so much, Angie. So my name is Susie Canali. I'm the Chief Legal Officer with Safe Alliance, and I've been fortunate to work with survivors of domestic violence for about the last 12 years, working both with legal aid and now at Safe Alliance. And we are so excited to partner with Larissa and legal aid and join Triage to really be able to expand Triage's wonderful services to survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. And so we know that domestic violence is an incredibly staggering problem. 1 in 3 women in the United States and 1 in 4 men experience some form of domestic violence in their lifetime. When our clients come to us, they're often recovering what has been the worst night of their life. They perhaps were almost killed, they're injured, and they're just in a very vulnerable state. And having to add on to that, navigating the court system can be completely overwhelming. And that's where pro bono attorneys coming in to be able to provide assistance is both life-changing and incredibly impactful for those survivors, and also I think for the attorneys who do the work. And so we have 2 opportunities to get involved in domestic violence cases. And the first is to represent survivors in domestic violence court, which I know sometimes we say litigation and it can sound like a scary word, but domestic violence court can be very straightforward. Our CLE will provide you with the training you need and a manual you need to be able to competently represent survivors in court, to be there with them and help them obtain necessary protection. We know that survivors who navigate the court system alone are just at a disadvantage and less likely to obtain that much needed protection. 83% of victims who go into court by themselves to get a protective order, or 83% of those represented obtain a protective order, compared to 32% of those who go without an attorney do not obtain a protective order. And so the act of being there and representing survivors helps them obtain that vital safety. And we're there with you every step of the way. And it's a short commitment. So domestic violence cases get scheduled out about 10 days in advance. You would receive the case. We give you training, all the evidence you need, guidance on how to interview your client, prepare for court. You'd go to court, hopefully obtain that order, and then the case would be done. The second opportunity we have is more transactional based. And so it's for attorneys whose skill set is transactional versus litigation. It allows you to review pleadings that survivors prepare in our office. The attorney reviews the pleadings to make sure they're legally sufficient, and then those pleadings are filed with the court. With that opportunity, there's no commitment to represent the client. There's no commitment beyond just the shift you sign up for. So you could sign up for 3 hours. We would give you all the training you need to be able to review the pleadings. We would be there to answer any questions. The action would be filed and the pro bono work on that case would be complete. And what that does is help set that survivor up so that when they get to court, the case isn't dismissed because they forgot to check a box or didn't include the necessary information. And so I hope you'll consider joining Larissa and me on September 20th at K&L Gates at 3 p.m., where we'll provide you with all the training you'll need to be able to successfully change and possibly save someone's life. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Susie. We're so proud to have you all on board and hope that our volunteers can really help make a difference. So thank you for all the work you do, and thank you for being a part of Charlotte Triage this fall. We have one last presenting group. It's also a new pro bono partner for Charlotte Triage, the Council for Children's Rights. Some of you may be familiar with the wonderful work that they do in the community, and for some of you, this may be a new organization, but I'm going to turn it over to Heather, the Executive Director, and Caitlin, the Director of this education project that we're planning to introduce to Triage this fall.
Yes, thank you so much. We are so happy to be here, so thank you for including us. I'm Heather, I'm the Executive Director, and with me is Caitlin Whalen-Jones, the Director of our Education Law Program. In North Carolina, there are over 200,000 students who require special education, yet less than 30 attorneys across the state representing youth whose rights have been violated and who are not obtaining the education, resources, or services to meet their educational needs as required by the law. And only half of the attorneys working in this specialized practice area provide their services for free. We are honored to be one of the agencies that do provide these services for free. There are not enough words to describe how lucky we are to work with these students and to give them the representation that they so deserve. The need for this representation is great in our community, and we are excited to work with you all to expand that capacity to serve our students with disabilities.
The representation provided through triage will ensure that each student has access to their education and individualized instruction based on their unique needs. This, in turn, will help prepare these students for their future education, employment, and independent living. As part of our training, participants will learn basic special education law as well as strategies and practice tips for handling special education cases. The training will provide an overview of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, our federal special education law, and Section 504, and focuses on practical skills to assist participants in identifying and effectively resolving common claims we see arising from the unlawful treatment of students with disabilities in K-12 public schools. We anticipate the majority of cases will be resolved through the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction's state complaint process. So this work will not require any in-court appearances. Cases may take anywhere from 4 to 6 months and approximately 15 to 20 hours over the course of those 4 to 6 months. However, each case will be different, but we'll be able to provide more specifics before you agree to take a particular case. We are so looking forward to working with you to improve the educational outcomes for students with disabilities.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caitlin and Heather. We are going to open it up for questions at this point. Let me see. Don't see anything in the chat, but anyone can feel free to unmute themselves and ask questions if there's any specific area you would like more clarity or information on. Now's the time. We also put the contact information for the leaders of these specific areas in the PowerPoint, so you're more than welcome to email them after the session if you have questions as well. So I'll just pause and see if anyone has any questions.
There's a question in the chat, Angie.
Yep, I just saw that. All right, so Courtney, do you see the question from Angie Robinson regarding expunctions?
Sorry, I'm trying to. I had to switch to my phone. There we go. There's the chat. Okay.
No problem. I can read it.
Yep, I got it. I got it. Sorry.
Okay. No problem.
Let's see. So Angie asks, is it true that some felonies can be expunged, or do people have to wait 7 to 10 years after the sentence is completed? So I'll just briefly go over what the rules are on felonies. There are felonies. I'm sorry. Hold on one second. Felonies are expungible under 2 general categories. One being youthful offenders, for people who were 16 and 17 when the offense was committed. It's a little more broad what is expungible there, but it's basically all H&I felonies, misdemeanors that are not traffic offenses, and anything in those categories that does not require sex offender registry. Adult convictions, meaning anything that someone was convicted of age 18 or older. You can expunge up to 3 felonies, but it's a little more restricted. They have to be H or I felonies or misdemeanors, not A1 misdemeanors, however, and nothing involving assault or sex offender registry. There are a couple other, disqualifiers. If anybody has one of those disqualifying convictions, then they're not eligible to have any convictions for crimes that were committed as an adult. That's including felonies or misdemeanors. The follow-up question here is, if a crime was committed in a different county, but the person lives in Mecklenburg County now, can they still get an expunction without an attorney present? For the most part, yes. So you're going to need to file for expunction in the county that you were convicted in. CCLA takes cases for any Mecklenburg County residents, but their convictions can really be in any county. Some counties allow for pro se filing by mail. Some counties require hearings in person. The person may or may not need an attorney. Usually they don't. Someone could represent themselves in another county, even if they live in Mecklenburg County. But if you have any clients like that, I would recommend referring them to CCLA, what happens is we have an intake line where clients will get a call back from a paralegal or volunteer here, and they'll get screened for CCLA representation. And then that's where we get most of our clients that we send out to pro bono attorneys, just to kind of bring it full circle. Are there any, does that answer the question, Angie? And are there any other questions about expunctions?
I think so. The other questions Casey sort of answered, but kind of the role that a legal professional or paralegal would play in handling an expunctions matter if you're not an attorney. Maybe just give some like specific guidance on what work that would entail.
Do you mean for a pro bono attorney or for someone representing themselves pro se?
No, a triage volunteer who's not an attorney who would like to assist in the expunctions project. What could they
sure. Do? Okay, yeah. Yes, paralegals or legal support staff can assist with drafting petitions to get filed. I just recently did a training on that, which we will make available to pro bono attorneys and staff and anybody who's trying to draft petitions to submit to different counties around the state. Other than drafting petitions, there's not really much that I think, not a licensed attorney would be able to handle. But that is definitely some legwork that we and attorneys and our pro bono attorneys definitely benefit from having.
And I'll say paralegals and lawyers who want to partner together, if you work together and want to partner together, I definitely recommend attending the expunction training together. And then you can sort of divide up handling expunction petitions versus the rest of it. It's a great partnership opportunity there. And we do a lot of referring cases out to those partnerships.
Yeah, and Angie, I think generally I would say that opportunities for non-lawyers are available in all of our service areas. And, if you will, make sure that you identify when you volunteer what that status is. Then the champions and the professionals that are covering those areas can help you find the best way to fit in. But there really are some fantastic opportunities. I would also note that many of the opportunities, even if you are doing an attorney role, don't require licensure. So if you're an in-house attorney or an out-of-state attorney, don't let that be a barrier to your participation. You can both get special status with the North Carolina Supreme Court to do pro bono work when you're not licensed in North Carolina. And then we also have lots of opportunities where you're under the supervision of attorneys, of North Carolina attorneys, where you can do that work as well. So, our programs are open to any legal professional or member of a legal department or law firm in the city.
Some other great specific suggestions in the chat. My advice would be pick the area that you're passionate about, pick the area where you want to contribute and make a difference, the clientele that you want to help, and, we'll find something for you to do. There's plenty of work to be done and plenty of ways where your contributions will be appreciated. So I would go for what you're passionate about based upon what you've heard today. And to echo Todd's earlier point, you don't have to do just one thing. Obviously, you can only be in one place on September 20th at 3 p.m., but we will record the sessions. They are posted onto the Charlotte Triage website, and you can get involved in other ways as well. So, feel free to reach out to me or to Todd or anyone who presented today if you have specific questions. We will definitely make sure that you can get involved. So I'll just stop there and see if we have any other questions.
My only question is, how could you possibly pick between these 7 amazing options? I want to do it.
I know. Thank you all so much. I really want to thank our presenters today. We've never done a session like this before. I found it helpful. We will post it on the Charlotte Triage website. So if you have colleagues who weren't able to attend today, please encourage them to visit the Charlotte Triage website and learn more about these opportunities. We are very excited about our September 20th event. We want everyone to pick a CLE to attend and then catch up with us afterwards at the Grand Bohemian. We're going to have a really fun and meaningful gathering this year. We're going to announce 2 awards that are brand new to the program, a Champion of the Year and a Volunteer of the Year. And then we're just going to have a good time and get to know each other and spend time with other people who are interested in pro bono in this community. So I think it's going to be a really great event, and appreciate everyone who's contributed in helping put this together. So if there are no last questions, Todd, do you have anything to add?
No, I echo your thanks to all the presenters for their time today, and we're really looking forward. Again, we're happy for you to join us remotely on September 20th, but we'd really love to see you in person so we can meet you and talk to you about all the fun stuff we're going to be doing together.
All right, please keep an eye out for your invitation. It will go out this week, and please spread the word. This is meant to be a very inclusive project, so everyone in the legal community is welcome.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good afternoon.